you have one less opponent, but will you tell me what you know about the other three that y'all are gonna see this weekend?
Well, all three of them have a lot of strengths. They pitch it really well. They have a very um, pesky, like they like to put things in motion a lot, put a lot of pressure on defenses, and they know how to win. So it's a combination of the three things that make them very challenging opponents this weekend.
Yeah, will you go a little bit more in depth, I guess, about each team that you're facing? I guess starting with y'all got South Alabama first.
Sorry, what?
Yes. Yeah. I said, could you go a little just in depth on the three teams you will be facing? I know y'all start with South Alabama, so maybe start there.
Oh, well, South Alabama is has they've been really tough. They've been really tough as far as I can remember, and they're coming off a weekend where they beat Alabama, they tied Arizona. They are playing really great softball right now. I believe they have one of the best pitchers in the country, let alone the staff in the country. They just don't give up runs. And they put pressure on defenses. They do things that are not necessarily characteristic to what we're used to. They take big risks. And I think that they can do that because they have so much trust in their pitching and their defense. And so it's gonna force us to be at our best on all sides of the game. And that's kind of the common theme throughout these three teams is they pitch it really well. And they have a productive offense for how they pitch it. And so it's a combination. So, I mean, it's like the same story for each of them. I do think that South Alabama's pitching staff's one of the best in the country. But each of these teams have a huge strength in their pitching.
Yeah. And then I'll ask one more just after, having so many invitationals back to back, multi-team invitationals, and now you're getting ready to go into the portion of your season where you're seeing the same team, over and over. What are you kind of looking forward to, like this weekend that you just really want to see your team maybe put together entering that new schedule?
Well, I think we're still looking to fire in all aspects of the game. I think it's kind of nice that we get one more weekend of multiple opponents while the SEC starts, and we can kind of like just look from the outside and be like, what's this going to be this year? It's always a grind. It's always a huge battle, but it's kind of nice to just continue like as we haven't felt like we've fully found ourselves of who we're going to be. And so we have another weekend to kind of establish that before we get into that one team 3 series weekend where it just takes a lot of grit and guts and adjustments and a good mindset and all of those things to be really resilient. And so I think we're close. I think we're knocking as a team. I'm not sure we're really there yet fully. And so we're going to have a huge challenge in this weekend, and every weekend has prepared us for the next, prepared us for whoever we play next. And so next weekend's SEC. And so we're hoping this weekend fully prepares us to tackle that part of our schedule.
Dudley?
Talk to me a little bit about how you feel like you played defensively, and do you feel pretty solid with that lineup?
Yeah, I think that we've played really great defense. I think our defense, for the most part, it's not perfect. No defense is, but it has been incredibly solid for us. And then I think we've seen flashes of what our offense can do. I think it's been incredibly productive. And we've seen flashes, and I know that we're right on the cusp of like really getting going. And so that's the exciting thing as we kind of come together is I feel like our defense has done really well. And our offense has been productive on days that they haven't necessarily felt their best. And that speaks a lot to this offense. So as they start to feel better each day, I'm excited for what's to come.
And in particular, talk about shortstop and just how you view that position right now.
Well, I still view that position as open. I think you can see that in what we do day to day, game to game. And so it's, we have a lot of belief in all three that we've put there. And so it's kind of been dependent a little bit on matchups, it's been dependent, like offensive matchups, because we know all three of them can flat defend it. So it's been a little bit on offensive matchups and just trying to make the best guess, guys. Sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't.
Appreciate
Yep.
Eric.
Coach, when you what makes Olivia Lackey one of the best pitchers, as you mentioned, when you watch her?
Oh, what doesn't, Eric? She spins the ball really well. I think that the velo is not necessarily as high as we've seen, but how efficient her spin is, how tight her spin is, it gets on you really fast. It makes it feel faster. She has a really good ability to spin it through the zone and also spin it to make you chase. She mixes speeds well. She hits her spots well. All those things that make an elite pitcher. She does really well.
And then Northern Iowa beat Auburn at their place, nearly beat them a second time. They've beaten South Alabama earlier. What makes Coach Jacobs' team really good watching them on tape? They've been to the NCAAs and won their conference championship the last couple of years.
Yeah, they've always been really good. So it's not anything new to us. We've always had a ton of respect for Northern Iowa. We've had really great games with them, great battles. We watch them closely because I think they're a team that some may look past, but we've always had a ton of respect for in how they play the game, how they're prepared for the game. They pitch it really well. They are incredibly just feisty and gritty. And so it's, something that we've always followed. And they know how to win. I know I said that at the beginning, but they know how to win. And there's a lot to be said for a team that has a lot of confidence in what they do and knows how to win.
It's not the first time you've had a schedule altered affected by weather. I'm always fascinated how you and Matt, when that happens, what goes into a decision whether, hey, should we add an extra game into our tournament? Should we add blank team later in the year? What goes into that process once, you have a situation like here with Nebraska?
Well, like in the moment, there's not a ton that goes into it because we just have to make a decision that's best for every team that's decided to come play here. And so, with Nebraska, we added them kind of late to our tournament. And so they were going to come on Thursday and they're out on Saturday and they're trying to pick up games that they lost at the start of the week. So we just kind of see everyone's travel plans and we try to make the best decision for everyone to get the most games. And our weather's not great today. It's not great the start of tomorrow, but we're going to get in. Everybody's going to get in there 3-4 games. So it's going to be worth it. And I do think that teams that come here know that we're going to put our best effort into getting every game in, and it's to accommodate everybody. When you come to a tournament here, you have great opponents that add great value. So there's a lot of things, and the grounds crew, Austin and his staff, are top notch. We have a field that drains really well. So a lot of things come into play of just making sure that it's the best decision for everybody coming. And then we'll figure out later if we need to add games or not. We track that pretty closely. We look at what kind of game we're losing to see what kind of game we can pick up. We're not just going to pick up any game. It's going to be a game that helps us. And so we'll look at that as the season progresses.
Have you noticed an impact from any of the new rules that were implemented this year in the sport, like the pitch clock, the batters being in the box by a certain time? Have you noticed any of that so far?
I don't know that I've noticed the overarching, how that's been implemented and how it's been affected or how it's affected game times or anything. I haven't seen any data on that. I've seen it come into play in really tough situations. And so that's tough. And so I think when it comes to our games, we don't like a lot of dead time anyway. And so the games that we're in, we try to keep moving anyway. That's the pace we like to play. So it doesn't really change what we're doing. I do think it's been tough I think sometimes hitters like to take that extra second or 2 seconds when they're in a critical count in a really big situation. And they're not necessarily thinking, oh, I have to get in the box in 10 seconds. And so we've seen it come into play in big situations where they're just trying to, get their mind right and get in, and they're late and it's strike 3. Or, I mean, we saw it in the Illinois LSU game of like game over, the game's on the line and you're trying to get ready. And so, I think we're still working through some of that. But I haven't seen any data to know. I don't feel like our games are any shorter. I don't know.
Average.
I don't know. We're just trying to win games. I don't know how long it takes us, but we'll see. We'll get the reports at some point. And I do think that it definitely helps when there's a visual. It's just on you, to the batter, on the pitcher, on the everything, to have it in their head if there's not a visual. And there's a lot of other things going on in their head. So I do think the visual is critical in applying this rule.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Justin?
Something you mentioned earlier about not feeling like you're quite there yet, like you're knocking on the door, but not feeling like you're 100% there. What to you is going to signify being there? Is it specific things you're looking for? Is it just kind of the general feel overall?
It's a general feel overall. I can't even necessarily put it in words. It's just what you're, as a coach or as a team, you feel on the day-to-day of just knowing who you are and not just feeling like you're working towards that, but you're not fully there. And it's not an outcome thing. I mean, I don't know what are we, 17-4? That's a pretty good record. So it's not an outcome thing per se. It's just of what we want it to feel like, what we want it to look like. I just don't think that we're fully there yet.
And then one thing I've noticed in your pre-conference tournaments, I almost called it preseason.
Good correction.
Yes.
They all count. They all count as season. Yep.
But in your pre-conference tournaments, you play most of the teams multiple times. A lot of teams will play sometimes one game, maybe 5 teams in a tournament type of deal. You play the same teams multiple times, even though it's not necessarily the same feel as a conference series. Does that help when you're preparing to go into conference because you have one game and then make adjustments for the next one, things like that?
Yeah, it does. It really does. It helps us to kind of study all their pitchers of how we would going into a one opponent three game matchup. It makes us have to make adjustments in the circle. It makes us really look at matchups and how we want to mix and match. And ultimately, obviously, we're always trying to win the game that we're in, but we have to think about the big picture of having to go head to head with that team again and not necessarily showing them everything we have, so it's just really being mindful in that strategy piece. And so, yeah, I think it definitely helps us get ready. Obviously you add another game and it's even to a greater extent, but yeah, that's definitely the start of getting prepared for that.
And then you kind of referenced it earlier, but I'm curious, do you like having your bye week this early in the conference season where you kind of can sit back and watch what happens, but then you got to go get the next ones in a row? Or do you kind of wish maybe break was a little later in the year?
Well, I wish that I had a crystal ball and I could see where we need it. But I don't. And so I think right now with where we're at, I'm glad that we have it right now. I'm not a coach that loves midweeks necessarily. And so having the bye now allows us to get, we were going to get 6 games in, hopefully we'll get 5. I don't know what we'll end up getting in. So it lessens the amount of midweeks you have to do. And then there's some times where you're in the middle of that SEC season and you're like, man, I wish we had a weekend to, just kind of step out of it, take a breath, obviously still play. But so I don't know. I just wish that I had a crystal ball. We've only ever had a bye in the middle, I think one time in my 9 years.
That was last year.
And it was last year. And I liked that. I don't know, but we've always had it either like weekend 1 or the last weekend, haven't we? So it's kind of weird. It's just kind of weird how that shakes out sometimes.
Any final questions for Coach?
Yeah, I'll ask one more. Kennedy Miller, I mean, has just been really good for y'all so far. What what did you see from her, I guess, building into the season that gave you, the sort of confidence to put her in a position where she could make such an impact?
Well, I think the biggest thing that Kennedy does is she does a really good job of just staying in the moment, of taking whether something went really well or something didn't go very well and just refocusing, recovering, and being in the moment. And it's pretty cool to see that she has the ability to do that as a freshman. It's usually a lesson you have to learn as you get to this level, and the game's faster, and it's just at a different level than you've played, and you're looking around and everyone's really good, and you're trying, sometimes you get out of yourself, and Kennedy's done such a good job of just remembering who she is. And if something goes wrong, she just kind of leaves it there and just like learns from it and moves on. She's also one of the hardest workers on our team, which is, I don't think there's any coincidence in the success that she's having. Is she works every day. She works, obviously does whatever we ask her, but she's in the cages every day working extra on what we're working on for the matchups that we have. So everything she does is intentional to what we are going to face. She dives into the scouts, she dives into the film, and she applies it really, really well. And I think that's the most impressive thing is, again, she's a freshman doing this, and now she's not sneaking up on anyone. She's not hanging, down with not knowing anything about her. And she just continues to stay really present in the moment, has really great at bats, and does a really great job with our pitchers. So I've been really impressed with her, and I'm just really proud of her.
Great, that's all I had.
Great. Thank you, Coach.
Thanks, guys.